Thank you very much, Program Director. You know, I feel like, Yarasi, I feel like Mani when he has to kick to the poles. Okay. So thank you very much, Program Director, for the wonderful honor, the chairperson of the FW de Klerk Foundation, Mrs. de Klerk, the CEO of the Foundation, Mr. Christoph van Rede, Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, Mr. Andres Peschke, the resident representatives of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, and now my screen went big. Get that name. Mr. Gregor Jaker, CEO of Signe, Magda Wierskaiska, I hope I've got that right, and coach of the back-to-back Rugby World Champs, Johan Rassi Erasmus. I like to call you Professor Erasmus for all that you have achieved in this country. And to you, my brothers and sisters and fellow South Africans, it's a wonderful privilege and an honor for me to be speaking here this afternoon. I consider this a great honor and privilege to be at this conference. I also bring you greetings from the University of the Free State and the newly appointed rector, Professor Esther Klopper. And I also carry with you greetings from the Center of Gender and Africa Studies, headed by Professor Stephanie Kaywood. I also bring you greetings from my hometown. This town has gifted this nation with the most Springbok rugby players and officials, with 14 rugby clubs with a collective history of more than 900 years. It is the rugby headquarters of South Africa and home to South Africa's latest Springbok captain, Salman Murat. There is no other town in South Africa that have produced more World Cup winners than Paarl. And a week ago, no other town. And a week ago, Paarl bowled themselves into the history books with a match-winning 20 overs of spin bowling led by the Prince of Paarl, Bjorn Fortuin, for the Paarl Royals at Boland Stadium in Paarl. Paarl is also home to KC 107.7, the Child of Democracy formed in 1996 by the young people of Paarl. This is also the town in South Africa where the 5 churches came together in 1926 to form the Athlone Institute, and through their own blood, sweat, and tears, they built their own high school when the government refused to invest in the education of children not classified as white. The work of the institution continues to this day, and last year this institution invested 900,000 rand in bursaries in the Paarl community. I am from Paarl, and I encourage you to visit our beautiful town. Mrs. de Klerk, it was once her home. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. But more importantly, it is from Paarl where South Africa's first democratic president, Nelson Mandela, took his first steps to freedom after FW de Klerk announced his release from prison. What a joyous and momentous occasion this was. I was in the crowd as a young 20-year-old in the crowd that waited the entire day at the Grand Parade in Cape Town to witness this historic occasion that set South Africa on an entirely new trajectory. Today we're here to reflect on the consequence of that speech and our position in the world today from a government and administration and service delivery perspective. We are not here to talk about sport and Paarl as much, because I leave that to Rassi, who has captured the imagination of the world with his bold leadership, innovation, vision, and foresight. I'm here today to remind you that yes, we are the world rugby champs, but we are also the undisputed champion when it comes to inequality. South Africa is the most unequal country in the world according to the World Bank, with rising levels of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. This is something that we are confronted with on a daily basis, and at times it would seem that our efforts to push back is in vain. At times, it seems that we are oblivious to this. And so this afternoon, in the 20 minutes allocated to me, I wish to, by way of example, examine South Africa's position in the world today from a government, administration, and service delivery perspective, through the futures triangle lens introduced by Pakistani-Australian scholar Sohail Inayatullah in 1997. He talks about the weight of the past, the pull of the future, and the push of the present. I will focus on local government, as this is my area of interest and my area of ongoing research. The global consensus on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and how we localize them will form the background to this canvas of our discussion. You see, we can debate about Zuma and Zilla, and Musi and Malema. What matters most, in my view, is what we do locally, in our local communities. It is at the local government sphere where we feel the pulse of that community. And sometimes we can stand on podiums and talk all these things, but what is it that we're doing and investing locally? It is at local government where people experience the love or the indifference of the state. We live in a VUCA environment, an environment that can be described as volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous. What is right yesterday is not necessarily right tomorrow. And so it is in this chaos that we hope to bring clarity, so that when we leave here today, that we have a clear understanding about where we are in this world. So let me start by the weight of the past and get the past out of the way. When we talk about the weight of the past, we are referring to those factors that are preventing us from moving forward. Those stubborn facts that we cannot wish or pray away, those facts of history that remain with us. One of my academic heroes is the late Professor Sampieter Blanche. He wrote a book, South Africa, A History of Inequality. He argued that in this country of ours, we have a triangle that looks like this. In the one angle, we've got the white elite, rooted in the historical privileges amassed before 1994, and that pattern continues. In the other corner, you have the black elite with new money, who are also not afraid to flaunt that, new elites. And then you have a predominantly black majority living in abject poverty in this country that we cannot wish away. When I say black, I mean all those were not classified as white. The research indicates, colleagues, that 53% of South Africans live below the poverty line, with 20% of children experiencing stunted growth due to malnutrition. It is in this country that the Sunday Times reported a couple of years back that children in the Eastern Cape, out of desperation, are eating sand to stay alive. That it's in the Eastern Cape where a mother took her own life and that of her children because she could not continue. She didn't have answers for them. My high school teacher, Mr. Abu Solomon, sent me this message early in the week, reflecting on what happened at the Stilfontein mines. He wrote, "Who are the masterminds in the background profiting from illegal mining? Who are they?" That's the question that should be answered. Illegal miners, criminals, whatever one wants to call them, do it. Because as one miner said as he emerged from the shaft, "I did it because I want to eat. I did it because I want to eat." It is the same when I see my fellow South Africans on a Monday morning, scratching in the bins in my street, looking for food. It breaks my heart that every Monday morning, the poor get to the middle class leafy suburbs to look for food in bins. That, my friends, is the weight of the past. This is what Anton Rupert referred to when he said, "If they don't eat, we don't sleep." The National Development Plan as articulated by government, is the consensus of all the political parties in this country of what is wrong. What is this thing holding us back? They say too few people work. The standard of education for most black learners in this country is of a poor quality. I can take you to the former school where I taught, Charleston Hill Secondary in Paarl. If I do my finger like that, it's an asbestos building, it will collapse. It's a terrible institution that projects to these children that we don't matter. Compare that to Paarl Gymnasium and Paarl Boys High. It's two different worlds. And so the standard of education in our country is something that we cannot escape. Infrastructure is poorly located. Spatial patterns continue. The economy is overly and sustainably resource intensive. The economy is, the widespread burden of disease puts pressure on the public health system. Public services are uneven and often of a very poor quality, and corruption is widespread. And then finally, the report concludes that South Africa remains a divided society. How do we explain that after 30 years, we still don't know who's African and who's not? There are some that are African and some that are not. We are still a divided nation. For 90 minutes, yes, we are divided, 100% united, and then elkeen maar steeds in sy eie hoekie after that 90 minutes. So this myth that rugby unites us, but after that 90 minutes, we go into our separate corners in our own realities. That is the tragedy of our country. And so, colleagues, at the same time of the publication of this book, Professor Sam-Pieter Blanche published another book in 2012 that I believe should be compulsory reading for every single South African. He did us a favor because he published it in Afrikaans and in English. And that book should be translated into all of the other languages in this country. The book is called Lost in Transformation. In Afrikaans, Verdeelde Land. In this, he says, our transformation is failing. Our public service is failing because we did not address the legacy of apartheid. Just when you land on Cape Town International Airport, just look to your left, and that legacy speaks so loud. He says we have not the immoral and inhumane system of apartheid was not replaced by a more moral and caring society. The new black elite is guilty of an extravagant get-rich-quickly mentality. I want to get rich as quickly as possible so that I can also say it's my turn to eat. The perpetuation of this unequal power relations between the non-racial elite, us in this room, we are the elites of our society. This alliance between the non-racial elite and the poor at the outside of the room. He says there's a lack of social solidarity and proud South Africanism. And the political economic system of the past, of the last 100 years, that has continued. We have seen poverty and unemployment increase. And so government, in its own assessment of its 30 years in power, review of local government notes that there's 270,000 people working in municipalities. And the problems in municipalities, government is very clear on that. It's down to political, spatial disparities. There's the inability to deliver service. Almost a third of municipalities have become dysfunctional. There's high vacancy rate. There's premature departures of key officials. And in short, we have really just messed up local government. That sphere that is supposed to bring hope to communities. Because you see, I can't get an appointment with the president, but surely my local councillor, that is my first point of call where I can interact. And so our best chance, if we do not get local government right, the entire state project fails. It's at local government where we need to strengthen and tighten the screws. This has been confirmed by research that we've conducted over the last 4 years in a research partnership with the local government CETA. And this is the context of public administration in our country, the weight of the past. Unless unless we address this demon of our past, we will not be able to move forward. That's the first one, the weight of the past. But there's also the pull of the future, of what is possible. The type of society that we have to imagine and reimagine if we have not yet imagined that. The place where all of us feel welcome. A sense of belonging. This better life for all that we so dreamed about in 1994. This dream that has been deferred, that everybody has a place in the sun. The poet John Shaw says the future is not some place we're going to, but one we're creating. China is very clear. We use the example of the East and the West, Magna. But China is very clear where it wants to be in 2050. Very clear. It says there we want to be, and then they behave their way back from the future. What is it that we need to do today? And so the pull of the future is that we had this future. In 2014, we said we will halve poverty. That 2014 came and gone, and we didn't meet that. In 2030, we said we will be far. Government reviewed its national development plan and said we have not managed to get even to scratch the surface of that. And so, colleagues, unless we behave differently and get away from short-term thinking, very little will change in South Africa. And the pull of the future is this ethical, developmental, and capable state with active citizens participating in shaping society. The National Development Plan is very clear, is that we cannot leave all the thinking to government. It says it has to be in a partnership between business, between the academic community, between government and the community. It is that type of partnership that gets us out of this governance mess. This is what we have been doing in PAL since last year through a program called Unlocking Youth Opportunities. Through a conversation like this on the 11th of March, we will have LinkedIn, Microsoft, and the Services Sector having a discussion about how do we keep unlocking opportunities. And in the room last year, we had business, we had government, we had the academics, and then we had community. So what is the pull of the future? Colleagues, equal access to education and health. I don't know how we're going to get this right. But we cannot have this system where I've got a toothache and I have to wait 2 weeks to have it extracted at a public hospital. If I have medical aid, I can have it extracted immediately. How do we create a more equal society where all of us have equal access to health care? We've got the best brains in this country. Let's put them and say, let all of us enjoy the same benefits. If there's one thing that COVID taught us, is that when COVID hit us, we all had access to great health care. And so you may smirk at it and say, but how do we get the rest also on health care? How do we make sure that everybody has access to quality education? It can't be the middle class, us the elite, enjoying the fruits. And what Anton Rupert said, to hell with the rest, let them suffer. If they don't eat, we don't sleep. And so the pull of the future must be what Elzebeth Zitzman said the other evening on Laat Aand met Rian. She says, I'm so sick and tired of the moaning and the moaning. She said, if one of us, if we that are privileged, just help one child, imagine the type of society we would have if we get one child educated, we the privileged in society. Secondly, the pull of the future is economic reconciliation. We have to have, there's enough for everybody's need, but there's not enough for everybody's greed in South Africa. There's enough, but we've got a greedy minority that are bent on taking and taking and taking. Thirdly, the future is coalition governance maturity. Coalitions are here to stay. Our political system is designed like that. And so in 2016, we had 28 coalitions. In 2021, we had 78 coalitions. in this local government election in 2026, we will have more than 100 coalitions. In the Western Cape, we've got 15 coalitions, fragile coalitions. But we cannot leave everything to the politicians. We will have to find our voice as civil society. And the last point of the future, I'm privileged to teach with the University of Kiel on a master's program on international cooperation. My German colleagues tell me they've got a degree now in digital public management. I said, wow, I want this. I want this for us because we have to prepare our young people for the future. They're talking about digital public management and using AI. I meet this colleague at the city of Johannesburg and how they're using AI and technology to increase public participation. And that conversation, we've invited him to Paul on the 11th of March to come and talk to us about governance and AI and how government can use that. Colleagues, I believe we've got the best brain in society. The push of the present is the final in this triangle. What is it that we must do? If that is the preferred future, not on paper, we behave ourselves into the future. The future is not owned by speeches. The future is aimed by actions. Deliberate, intentional actions to claim that future that we all so desire. And so the push of the present is that we need to move from good governance to great governance. If a small country like Britain can call themselves Great Britain and not Good Britain, why should we settle for good? We must be great in what we do. And so I'm interested in conversations and research about great governance. I don't want to be good. We started a podcast 3 years ago called Great Governance ZA. We're turning that into a book shortly. And we wanted to find municipal officials who are great, not good. To my surprise, we have found excellent people in this town, and we are on the mission to change this narrative that everything is horrible in local government. There are some excellent officials that I would like to share with you shortly. How do we push to the present? John Maxwell says, if there's no faith in the future, there's no power in the present. If there's no faith in the future, there's no power in the present. What is it that we can do? I was amazed the other day, and I'm yet to understand this, when an economist said his advice would be, stay in South Africa, but take your money out. It just doesn't make sense to me, man. I'm not an economist. But it sounds so unpatriotic to me to say, stay in South Africa, enjoy the benefits of South Africa, but migrate your money. Take it out as quickly as possible. So that I don't understand it. And again, I'm saying I'm not an economist, and I would like to have a conversation about that. The push of the president in terms of public administration. Wales is the first country in the world to create an independent office called the Commissioner of the Future. It's like a minister of the future. That's his job. His job is the future. That person, the Minister of the Future, is a unique position in Wales that provides advice and support on sustainable development, encourages government and public bodies to take long-term view in terms of policy and actions. Thirdly, what must we do? We must continue to ask difficult questions locally, even if it makes some angry. Anger them. But we need to ask difficult questions. If there is one thing that Russia has done so well, is to push the needle, to think outside the box, to challenge the status quo, like Steve Jobs says. Our job is not to be obedient. Our job is to question society and say, why are things this way, and how can we change it? We are not supposed to be in a box. If we move society forward, we have to ask difficult questions of one another. If this was church, I would say amen. Amen. So difficult questions. By asking difficult questions is how we move forward. We dream, there's this poem that says, this quote that says, some people see things as they are and say, why? We dream things that were and say, why not? Why can't we do that? Things don't have to be this way. And based on our research and international examples in public administration, we have developed what is called the Governance 5 IQ. And we said in any situation, and we've Africanized. Michael Barber was Tony Blair's Minister of Delivery. We've tweaked it and played around with the model, and we've Africanized it. And we said, and this is what we must do today. Every institution must ask, every municipality, why do we do what we do? Are we here to lead or are we here to loot? How do we do it? How do we do it? What is our strategy? How do we do it? With who do we do it? How will we know that we are on track? And that is why we need AI to help us. The municipalities produce voluminous documents on the IDP. Technology, and I'm still astonished by this, we can put that IDP through AI, and it could be able to develop patterns in there. And so how will we know that we are on track? By using the best technology to say we are on track in the type of society that we want. If we're not on track, what is the consequence of not being on track? The Bito municipality in the Southern Cape recently appointed Alan Paulson, and his title is Manager Governance and Consequence Management. And so he is the person that goes around to check what are the consequences for bad behavior? Because the problem in a lot of municipalities and in society is that people get away. It's like the Auditor General every year says the same thing, so people listen, but they're not hearing. And so there has to be consequence for bad behavior. And then finally, how do we lead and learn? These 5 questions. How do we preserve knowledge? How do we harvest knowledge? How do we use knowledge to better society? The push of the present, colleagues, is an important what we do today. I like what they say in Singapore. We have to have a pragmatic approach to governance. In Singapore, they say it doesn't matter if it's a white cat or a black cat. If the cat catches mice, it's a good cat. That's a great cat, yeah. Sorry. And so, if the CEO is white or the CEO is black, if the lights are on, let's all rejoice. That is pragmatism. We need a pragmatic approach to governance because we are moving away from ideology to pragmatism. What works? It is of no use we produce papers and volumes of research, but we cannot take our research to better society. And so you see, you don't know what you don't know. In conclusion, the problem in our country is the following. You know, when we were small, there was a thing that says, on your marks, get set, conference. On your marks, get set, imbizo. And we talk about the same thing over and over and over. I don't know if it makes us feel better to talk about the problems all the time. And I'm interested in solutions. The EFF, in a press statement on the 25th of January, says the following. Billions of rand meant for social programs, including HIV/AIDS treatments, are returned unspent every year. In 2023, the Gauteng Health Department underspent 1.6 billion of the district health service budget, while the Eastern Cape Health Department lost conditional grant funding close to similar inefficiencies. These failures have left people vulnerable. Colleagues, we believe that the Futures Triangle, together with our Governance 5 IQ and accompanying governance culture, have the potential to unlock deep, purposeful discussions in municipalities. At the University of the Free State, we are a proud knowledge partner to local government. We do not want to be academic tourists. Instead, we are determined not to just produce knowledge for understanding, but for action and to liberate people. We are not interested in research for the sake of research, We keep pointing out to decision makers what must be done. I'm on record as one government department, we submitted a report to them about what is wrong. I had to chase him for 9 months. 9 months to say, this is our recommendations, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? Every week I called him until we did something about it. Once you know, we have to develop a thick skin in South Africa. Here in the Western Cape, we say dikkou. Jy moet maar aanhou en dikkou. Once you know better, as Maya Angelou said, you must do better. The GNU has provided evidence-based policy making as a key cornerstone, but I say again, we cannot leave all the thinking to government. Like a good lawyer in court, I put it to you. The attention of the world is on us. We have a history of inequality in this country. We've got the weight of the past. If we continue to ignore it, we will not be able to go forward. But there's one thing that we have, colleagues, is agency. What you have been entrusted with, your privileged position in society, wherever you find yourself in, there's a responsibility on you to use that privileged position to better and to further South Africa into the future by behaving differently. You cannot wait on the president. What you have been entrusted with, use that to better society. We move now from government to governance. And that means that we co-create with government. We do not leave it to government to say, you deliver services and we just receive it. No, we co-design with government at the beginning of that. And so government, they serve on the behest of the people. We co-create. We need to be fearless. We need to be a do and dare people. We need new solutions. The old no longer works. And as we move into this bright new future, that we have to make sure that we lead society and make sure there's an acronym that says GTSD. It says get the done. You decide what that S is. We have to have people in our organizations with very high GTSD scores, because there are too many people in our organizations with low GTSD scores that can talk and talk and talk, but nothing happens. I thank you very much for the privilege. Thank you.